Today on Listen Up, advice on aging from one of Canada's most famous senior citizens. A challenge for the nation that's getting older. Exploring the fallout next. Welcome to Listen Up. I'm Lorna Dueck. Over the next few generations, the worldwide proportion of older people is expected to increase tenfold. So today, we're looking at the issue of senior care from our Christian perspective. In Canada, almost 1 in every 3 citizens has celebrated a 50th birthday. What will a graying population mean? Later in the show, we'll visit with one of Canada's most famous seniors for her advice. Statistics tell us that on average, today's seniors are living longer, are more active, more tech-savvy, and financially better off. But every 5 minutes, another Canadian develops dementia, a condition that affects 20% of seniors by age 80. So there comes a point when many seniors need a little help. And before very long, here's what that help could look like. Meet Brian, a robot designed by scientists at the University of Toronto to provide social and cognitive stimulation to the elderly.
I can be happy, or I can be sad.
Well, researchers hope to test Brian, the robot, in nursing units within a year. But he was so controversial, they weren't willing to give us an interview here. Obviously, seniors are becoming a big priority to researchers, and to help us understand the latest in the field, I'm joined by Dr. Alexa Roggeveen, lead researcher at the Sheridan Elder Research Center. And welcome, Alexa.
Thank you.
So, talk to us about Brian. You know, when I get nervous when people can't come on camera to say this robot may be coming to a senior's home near you. What are we to make of this? Is this where we're at?
Well, I think people's automatic response to thinking about a robot taking care of their grandmother is going to be a negative one, because it sounds very impersonal. And
Yes.
It sounds like good care won't be taken of older adults. But the reality is caregiving is an incredibly difficult job to do. Even for people who love their parents or their grandparents dearly, it can be very, very difficult. So if a robot can fill some gaps where a person or a human wouldn't actually have to do those tasks, maybe keeping track of whether somebody's taking their medication or having a conversation with somebody, even for a brief period of time, if it relieves caregiver stress, then the benefit to that older adult will be significant.
Okay, your research, though, is centered on a little bit more personal application of actually helping seniors improve the qualities in their life. Give us an idea of what you're researching, what's possible.
Well, what we're doing, I mean, there are many different projects that we're working on. The most exciting one that's going on right now is a project that's been funded by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. And what it's meant to study is what the benefits are of participation in a dance program for older adults, both in terms of the exercise and its impact on quality of life. So obviously, it's going to have, you're exercising when you're dancing, but dancing is so much more. It's the music, it's the social interaction.
But one size doesn't fit all, obviously.
Oh, no,
So
of course not.
What are some other ways that quality of life is being looked at for seniors?
Well, in terms of one size fits all, I mean, the dance programs, we can specialize that for people depending on who's in the class, because a 65-year-old is going to be very different from a 95-year-old. But we're also doing things having to do with technology. We have one-on-one computer tutoring going on at the Elder Research Center, and we've been refining a program of that, because every older adult, when they walk in, wants to learn something different. You can't just stick them in a classroom and expect them to all want to learn the same thing.
Okay, there's some key things a senior needs to input into their life to be that kind of adaptable, growing senior.
Yes.
What are those key things?
Well, I would suggest to everybody, and I mean, these tips go for everybody, young or old, it just happens to be most important for older adults, is find something that you're passionate about. Get involved, whether that's working part-time or volunteering or being strongly involved in a community group. Research has clearly shown that people who participate in activities that get them out of the house every day do better. They stay sharper, they stay happier, and so that's really something that I would most recommend for people to do.
You also recommend the word empowerment. Families, communities, what does it look like? What does that word look like when it's going?
Empowerment means that we give people the opportunities to make the most of their lives at whatever stage they are in, and that they have a voice in everything that they do. We at the Elder Research Center always try to involve older adults in designing our research and deciding what questions to ask, because far be it from us to know what's best for them, right? I mean, you need to go to the people whom you're doing things for to know what they need.
Tell us the story of what motivated you to get involved in senior research.
Well, I started out far away from it. I started out studying younger adults and primarily university students and visual perception. And then my grandmother has macular degeneration. And I believe she's 91 right now, and she continues to live alone in her own home. And I just looked at that and I thought, that is amazing. You know, I mean, she has some degrees of help. You know, she has someone come in and clean and that sort of thing, but I mean, many people do anyway. And she was just so independent and so fierce in her desire to continue to be able to do everything that she wanted to do.
So the strength of an older person inspired you in your young years to become a researcher on their issues.
Yes.
Just a great example of what seniors have to bring to us.
Yes.
All right. Alexa, thank you very much. You're not the only young researcher inspired by older people. Our own Ricky Ratliff went down to find out why the hottest thing happening in publications for Canadian magazines seems to be coming from seniors. Here's Ricky Ratliff with the Inside Scoop.
We've been known to be.
A publishing and style icon, Suzanne Boyd is quickly becoming one of Canada's most influential baby boomers.
Oh, I don't like this one.
But something along the lines of this, maybe a little more active versus something.
Well, this feels like it was from our last contest last month, and it doesn't.
As the editor-in-chief of Zoomer magazine, it's her job to make the golden years glitter for Canada's largest and most powerful demographic.
The spin we've put on it is boomers with zip, hence Zoomers. And really it's about an attitude towards aging in a positive manner. So I started looking at magazines targeted to this group, and I felt that two things were going on. Most of them were treated like they were medical pamphlets. So if you are a certain age, all you can think about is, you know, being ill, and that happens, but that's not always the case. We wanted it to really reflect what people were really doing. So there's energy, there's happiness, because, you know, at this age, you know, studies have shown that once people get over 50, they actually get happier and more content with themselves. And we wanted to reflect that in the magazine. The lifespan has increased 20 years in the last 40 years. So this whole idea of that, you know, it's all over, you're retired at 65, I mean, that doesn't really work anymore.
Leading the charge for seniors who just won't quit is 89-year-old big city mayor Hazel McCallion, featured on newsstands in their October issue as one of the top 45 Canadians over 45.
And she's on the Zoomer list because at, you know, this advanced age, she's still full of vim and vigor, and she's still running Mississauga with the iron fist.
Zoomer has created categories for these vintage difference makers, from pioneers to reinventors, and from lovers to... What's her category?
She is a fighter.
Although the magazine reads like a flashy fashion publication with columns on beauty, sex, and dating, they never airbrush the wrinkles or get rid of the gray. At Zoomer, they embrace the aging process and the questions that come with it.
So what's going on with the Canadian pension system? What's going on with the Canadian healthcare system? Will I be forced to retire at a certain age? And one of the biggest things our readers is concerned about is ageism. Ageism is in the workplace, ageism in the media, and we're showing the whole range of seniors and how much they contributed to Canadian society.
And for Zoomer readers, spirituality matters.
I think as people get older, and I found that for myself, and our readers tell us that you start, you know, it's what's it all about, you know, and people used to call that a midlife crisis, and now we call it, you know, we're searching, we're growing, we're reinventing ourselves, we question our choices, and then we have to come to peace with it at a certain point so we can actually get on with our lives and be content with how it's changing.
And suddenly, getting old doesn't sound so bad after all. For Listen Up TV, I'm Ricky Ratliff.
When we return, she holds a political record unmatched by anyone in Canada. 11 back-to-back victories at the polls. An intimate chat with Mississauga's 89-year-old mayor, Hazel McCallion.
I don't take any day off. You know, there isn't a day that I say to the staff, I don't want any appointment.